Hi there, I'm Jen, this is Remembered Reads, and this is going to be a bit of a response to a buddy read that I did recently that encouraged me to think about the notes that one gets at the end or the beginning of any kind of edition of a classic work. I took part in the buddy read of Balzac's Cousin Pons that Brian from Bookish was hosting, and this was quite a large group of people. I think there might have been 10 of us reading this. And what was interesting for me is that what I took away from that experience was essentially that I had a very different encounter with this book, not for what I guess would be one natural reason, which is that I was reading this in French and I think everybody else in the group was reading the English translation. But not because of that, but because my edition here from Folio Classique had about a third of this is notes at the back. There are footnotes to references. This book was written as a pairing called The Poor Parents, along with Cousin Bet, and there are like references back and forth between the two, and about 30 pages of this are references. This included advertising from the original, as well as notes on intentionally archaic vocabulary that Balzac chose to use, things like that. And what was interesting is that a lot of the other people that were buddy reading this in the group, some people had the free e-copies that you can get from Project Gutenberg, which obviously has only the original text or the original translation and no notes. But a number of people had the Penguin Classics, which apparently has an introduction and some notes at the back, but nothing as thorough as this. And I think having all of those notes really changed my experience of this. Now, to a certain extent, I felt like I couldn't talk about certain things because I wouldn't be taught with the group, just because I wouldn't be talking so much about my reactions, which I think is the goal of buddy reading, as opposed to just saying, wow, let me tell you what I just read out in the notes. Because I just thought the notes in this were spectacular, and if I remember to, I'm gonna film this and include them just so you can see how much is in here, because I thought this was great. But I think some people are maybe going into any novel, regardless of whether it's considered something of cultural importance or a classic or what have you, and just want to have their own reaction, because I do see people who say never read the introduction when you're reading a classic because it assumes that you know everything and it spoils things. And I never mind being spoiled because I love having the extra information. But I would be curious to know how you feel about that. Would you rather read something with no notes or something with very thorough notes like this? Or would you prefer something in between, which I think is what the Penguin Classics version had? I'm going to say, price-wise, these Folio Classique books, which are mass market size, but as I said, with all these notes, tend to sell for around $10 Canadian. I obviously got this out of the library, but the Penguin Classics tend to be $16 or more, which, considering that how much additional information was in here, this definitely feels like a better value, you know, even beyond the size of the book. So yeah, that's worth something. Anyway, I just wanted to ask how other people feel about this, because I guess this is the only time I've tried group reading something where I genuinely had an edition that had so much more additional context to it in the physical book that I had itself. And yeah, it definitely changed the experience of reading this for me. So I'd love to hear if you have a preference when it comes to additional information in classic or culturally important or whatever, however you want to describe them, books. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for now. Ciao.
Yep.